What do you guys do for a living?
What do? We farm, and we also have a rice dryer and warehouse facility. We farm walnuts and almonds.
At the warehouse, we dry and store rice mainly, but we also take in some other crops, but it's predominantly rice. When the farmers are harvesting, we take the stuff they harvest and they bring it into us, and then it comes in at a high moisture where if it wasn't dried down, it would spoil within sometimes days or weeks. So that obviously is not anybody's goal. So we dry it down so it can be kept for, in the case of rice, almost indefinitely. You know, a year, a couple of years, 3 years, whatever. And so that gives the farmer a chance to sell. He knows his crop is safe. He's got something to sell. It's not, rotting in front of his eyes. And, it's part of the infrastructure that's existing.
Can you talk about what it's like to grow things for people? Is it easy?
It looks easy because, a lot of people can relate. Oh, we have a home garden or have a few flower pots, we grow some flowers and this and that. But to do this on a larger scale is a little more difficult than in your own garden. And I'm sure lots of people have failed things in their home garden too. And that's one thing we try not to do, have, failures at planting time or growing or harvesting. So, because you just can't afford to.
Well, I do a lot of the farming, and Joe takes care of the warehouse, but sometimes it's good for Joe to get a taste of what I'm doing as well, because, for instance, with the almonds that we have, I complained when we had an open tractor that I didn't have a cage on our tractor, and he just kind of went, well, just, make it work, whatever. The boss says, make it work. And we farmed that way for a number of years, and one of our employees was helping me one day, and he jumped on the tractor, says, I'll take care of it. And after 5 minutes, he jumped off the tractor and says, I cannot deal with these branches. They're just ripping my clothes. And I said, well, join the club. So Joe just said, deal with it, Annelie, you can handle it. So I'm in the orchard and I'm like, through the branches sometimes. My shirts, they'd be left down the road. Sometimes I'd be like, oh my gosh, I lost my shirt. Never wore earrings or anything because they would have been torn out of my ears. And one day, Joe comes home and he jumps on the tractor and he goes down the road. And a few minutes later, the tractor goes to the shop and they start welding a cage on the tractor. So
I know where this is going.
So yes, it can be a bit challenging sometimes when you're both working in the same business, but you're not.
When we say Family Water Alliance, it's really a family operation for you guys.
Yeah, Annelie and I are we're the owners, but we also are part of the main workforce. We have 3-4 employees, but so we're almost half the workforce here. So, and that's the thing about the family farm. We do some business. We rent some ground out to a corporate farm, and they have decided to pull in their horns because it's not working out too good for them. And so anybody afraid, family farm versus corporate farms are going to take over. Don't worry, because those people are on the clock and they go home when it's time to go home. Whereas on a family farm, you work till it's done, and sometimes that's a long day, and sometimes it's a short day. But when you got to be there, you got to be there, and we get things done.
And we were both raised on dairies, and so it was like, well, Christmas is a holiday, but the cows never knew it was Christmas, or Thanksgiving, or Easter, or birthdays, or what have you. It was, if the work had to be done, it has to be done.
That's why we don't dairy, because we'd like to have a day off here and there, and, Sunday's day of rest if we can, and all that good stuff. So.
And on the dairy that I was raised on, we milked from 12 noon till 6 in the evening, and then 12 midnight till 6 in the morning. And there were times when the milkers wouldn't show up, and so guess who had to milk cows? I did, after working a full day. And, it might happen 2 days in a row. You're just exhausted. But if everybody pitches in, we always get it done.
Were you raised here in Colusa?
No, I was raised my parents were immigrants And they started out in working on a dairy in Southern California by Riverside, and then moved to Ceres, where I was born, and then moved to Elk Grove, where my dad became a partner in a dairy there. And then he started his own dairy in Wheatland. So I spent most of my formative years in Wheatland, California. And Joe was raised on a dairy in Holland.
Can you talk about that? Was
Oh.
there a difference?
The scale of the farm was vastly different. Their family, they had 2 herds, I think, at one time, probably 800 or 1,000 milking cows, and my dad had 20 cows. So, you know, a one-man operation versus a multitude of people and a huge number of cows. So, of course, it was a mixed farm, so we also did crops. It wasn't like he just took care of the 20 cows and then, you know, took it easy the rest of the day. He was always doing something.
But your father refused to even go to church on Sunday if a cow was coming close to calving because he was
Yeah.
afraid something would happen.
When did you come to the United States?
I was 22 years old in '77, and I had an opportunity to go on a work-study program through the University of Minnesota. So that's what I did. And it was a 2-year program, and in the second year we met, and so kind of stuck around and still sticking around.
So you met at the University of Minnesota?
No, I actually was in California on a farm, and one of the other participants, Norwegian girl that we traveled with, she worked for her folks, and she wanted to come take a look at pictures and listen to some travel stories, and so Annelie brought her out, and that's when we met in Dunnigan.
Yes, but Joe, after they finished school, they had the opportunity to do some traveling, and so he and an Australian fellow and this German and a German girl, Norwegian girl, went down to Central America, and then you and the Australian traveled through South America.
Right.
And then you came up, and then I was living in the Carmel area at the time, and I came home to visit, and the Norwegian girl was working for my folks, and she asked me to give her a ride to visit with Joe and Rob to see some photos that they had from the trip, and I thought, but then it was worth it when I looked at him. I thought, yeah, not bad. And I kept waiting for him to call because I kept hearing, wow,
Yeah.
this Dutch guy, Joe,
Here it comes.
he really talks a lot about you. And I kept waiting for him to call. And he never did, so I finally called him. So
Mm-hmm.
that's
Yep.
how it all started.
And the rest, as they say, is
Yeah.
history.
And so your parents had farms down south. What brought you to Calusa? Or Wheatland. So what made you decide to come over here?
We started going out, and pretty soon we, decided this was going to be it. And
I wanted a farm. That was always my intention. I had studied soil science and I worked in a museum in Carmel, but my heart was always in the land to farm. And so Joe had the same dream. We both wanted a farm, but we didn't want dairies. But we decided we were going to do it. So Joe and I both worked for other farmers, and in our off time, after work or whatever, we would we planted some wheat and on some small acreages, and that's how we started farming. And we just kept working and working, and our parents didn't help us. We started with nothing.
mm-hmm.
And then we had children, and our eldest daughter could have been born on the tractor, but made it to the hospital. So anyway, and as the kids grew, I took them with me on the tractor or on the harvester. Sometimes I had 3 kids in the harvester with me, and they were all trying to, jump around in there and whatnot. But we had great conversations and a bit of yelling going on. But we always worked together. But we found that with the warehouse, Joe could work there, and I could do the farming, and that way we didn't argue quite so much, and we could both sleep in the same bed at night.
So some advice to people that are thinking about getting into the ag business.
Just do it. We had so many people tell us,
Oh yeah.
to
Can't-
discourage
you
us.
can't
I
do
worked for a man, I drove tractor for him, and he called us Green Acres, and he would like hum it whenever he saw me, because he knew we had a small acreage, and he said, "You'll never make it." He's gone broke twice since then, and we just keep plugging along, and he was actually delivering rice into our warehouse a couple years ago, and I just kind of whistled Green Acre song to him as he walked by. So I suggest just start small, don't, have great expectations, and just keep plugging along. And you'll have those times that you just want to quit, but don't quit. It's like anything else. Persevere. Just keep on going.
Talk a little bit about how you get involved with the ag community with youth.
I try to encourage them, and I was a 4-H leader for, it seemed like forever, for about 9 years, I think, for a livestock leader. I try to support the kids in many ways, and we're into a local buyers group, and we head it up, and so we pull money together and we purchase animals at the fair, especially kids who don't have the connections within the community, and we know kids who have worked really hard. I talk to all the leaders to make sure that these kids are deserving. If they're not deserving, we won't bid on the animals. As a leader, I had a few of those kids that just didn't give a hoot, and so I just would stand back and think they're kind of fly by night and they won't be back. If perhaps they will, perhaps their parents will make them come back, but I know these kids. And as they grow up, also, they may work in the community and they may go on to go to college and try to find a job in that particular study, and I really try to encourage them to keep it up. And in agriculture, I have a chance to know these kids. Some of them work for us for a little while.
We also used to be involved in an exchange program, because I came over that way, and so it was a little payback time. So we probably had 50 or 60 foreign students over the years that we hosted and worked with us and stuff. So it's and then you get your own kids who you want to be involved in the community at least. If ag is not their thing, they don't have to, but at least they know the way. And part of the reason why I'm on the board here, it's because community involvement. Somebody's got to do the work and the lifting that's involved, and et cetera, et cetera. And so you show by example, and hopefully it'll rub off on somebody. It might not be within the family, but maybe a neighbor or a friend who can says, "Hey, that's actually pretty neat what you do, and I know it needs doing, so I'll get involved in something too." So.
And also, I think some kids leave with the thought of, I don't want to be part of farming or part of this community or whatever. But then they come back.
Yeah.
And they say, this was really a good life. And they get involved and they start farming or some other ag business, and they're on their way. But I think everybody should have a chance to leave and go try something else for a while, because you appreciate what you have at home.
How do you know what's right for you if you don't try other things? That's partly why I came over in this exchange program. I want to see something else than what I was used to, and I did. And I had no idea what it would lead me to, but it led me into things and places that I would have never dreamt of as a kid growing up in Holland.
What is the biggest threat to the family farm in the next 20 years?
I think the leadership, and I see this not only in this state, this country, but I see it worldwide, because I've looked worldwide, is governments that are just uninformed and uncaring about what happens to people on the land. They keep making rules that are obstacles, that are unneeded, unnecessary. And I think you drive this to the nth degree, it'll be impossible to produce food, or very difficult. And then You know, who gets to play God? Who gets to dole out the food that is produced, you know? Does it go to the highest bidder, or does it go to the largest volume of people, or and those who just don't end up with anything? See ya. You know, who gets to make that decision? And how do you roll that back once you're at that point? Because if you're short of food, that's just not a day or a week or a month. That'll probably be till the next production season comes around, which is a year away. You know, nothing fast in this cycle. So once you find yourself in that position, it's major ugly. And we don't want to ever find ourselves there.
But people also have been so well fed and so well taken care of
Yeah.
that they don't know any difference, and they don't realize how fragile this all is. And so these rules and regulations are made up as they, on the fly, as they go along, not realizing what the consequences could be. We've had families in Europe who starved during World War II, and your family too had a hard time. They have no idea how critical everything is.
So you just went back to Holland for a visit. Do they have the issues that we have, the environmental constraints?
Oh.
And
Huge, huge.
so is it hard to be a farmer in Holland as it is
It's
to be?
almost impossible, because at least here our government acknowledges us and helps us in many respects. Over there, you're just you're just a hindrance. You're just in the way, and they can't wait to pave over the farm and build houses on it, etc. Who needs farmers, you know? And you know, because a lot of them are into livestock, so their animal smell, the manure smells, it's a problem, etc., etc. So people don't think about what they put in their mouth. They just think, oh, this smells, you know, it's unpleasant. Let's pave it over and put some more houses there, or a freeway or whatever. But you know, that's the thing that makes farming unique, though, as a business. We all like to eat at least 3 meals a day, and you know, without farmers, that would not be possible. Because if you go back to that little garden story, you know, where your garden fails, what are you going to eat now, pal? You know, and you think about the society that we live in. None of it would be possible without us on the bottom of it to feed everybody and make it possible that they pursue their interests. And God bless them for doing that. But I think oftentimes we end up on the short end of the stick and underappreciated and undervalued, and you know, and as leadership in the state and the nation, you know, in the recent drought, we've seen many examples where water was taken away. That was maybe a political decision, not the actual unavailability of water, but just you know, it's not convenient to have this water to grow something. It's better we use it somewhere else. You know, those are unfortunate decisions that actually really show how people don't really, you know, our leadership doesn't really think these decisions through very well, I think. And it's, you know, and you carry that forward another generation or 2 or 3, and you know, the end result will be that farming will be made very difficult, and I see, you know, famines down the road if that's carried on. And that doesn't have to be. We have plenty capacity to produce food. We just got to be allowed to do so. Give us the tools. Keep us farming. We'll feed you.
I was at a dinner a few years ago, and it was in Davis, and someone asked me what I did for a living, and we were all sitting at a table having dinner, and I did not know these people, and I said, I farm. I was attacked. They said that we were spoiling the earth, just giving me all kinds of random examples. And I said, no. I said, I'm a caretaker of the earth. If I'm not good to the earth, I can't make a living. So I don't know where this ideology comes from that these people think that we are bad or that we need to have the government put so many false ideals out against us, because it just doesn't make sense. We are caretakers.
Logic tells you that if you have you own the land, the means of production, why would you despoil that? Why would you ruin that in 1 year or 5 years or one generation? We also have children. They need to do something down the road. Maybe they want to farm, maybe not. But everybody needs to eat and keep on eating. So why would you take a short-term profit and then, ruin the thing that gives you the profit by too many chemicals or whatever? This doesn't make it doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense.
It's not
to
only
you.
that, but we care about ourselves and what we eat.
Right.
We care about what our children eat.
We live on the farm. If we use spray, we're 100 feet away from where the spray ends up being, or maybe even closer at times. So we don't want to put ourselves at risk, or our consumer, our customers. There's no way.
And we don't go out and buy every chemical there is. We're
Yeah.
just very selective. We have a large native bee population where we live. And if there's anything on that paperwork that's handed over to me from the ag advisor that says this is harmful to bees, I will not use it. I try to enhance the insectary plants on our place, find nesting areas for them. And I think they're a major part of success in a farm. It's just not spraying everything to death. I mean,
Right.
like I said, we're really concerned about us and our family and our neighbors and everyone else on this earth. We have to keep this, we have to continue to be caretakers.